I was certain I was going to hell until I was way older because I had these urges and these feelings that were so evil.
Hello, and welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I am the president and founder of Heart and Solutions, and we are a strength-based counseling agency here in Iowa. We do outpatient mental health counseling services here in Iowa in schools, in any of our 7 office locations, and also through telehealth.
And I'm Chrissa. I am the Vice President in charge of the Behavioral Health Intervention Services Department at Heart and Solutions, so our BHIS department. And we go in-home or in school or in the office or telehealth right now as well, and can see children from the ages of 4 all the way up through 18 to work on different behavioral skills. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
So we post every Sunday night at 5 p.m. Central. So we always encourage you to batch up whatever unpleasant task you have for the week, putting away laundry, washing dishes, whatever that happens to be. And go ahead and make it a ritual. Go ahead and put on the podcast on Sunday night. That gives you the entire week to call your counselor or get scheduled with a counselor, or just to be able to reflect on the topic from that week and the person who has shared that week. So we really appreciate everybody who listens. We've been getting some messages lately of, great show or another good show. We just so appreciate that. So thank you guys for listening. It really means a lot. Okay, so today I'm personally very excited today because we have a really great guest today. We've got Andee Thompson. Hi, Andee. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Andee is a fellow Iowan, and I have known Andee, but it's been years. It's been like 5 years, right? Our littles were little at the time that we met. And I just think that the fact that Andee and I have been able to, we've only met in person twice, but we have, but we've just followed each other on social media, just followed each other from a distance. And it's just been so cool. Andee is such a inspiring presence. She just really, she is not afraid to speak up for what she believes in. She will debate you in like the most kind, loving way. She will debate you and she will disagree with you while still fully valuing and accepting exactly who you are as a human. And I think that's such a lost quality sometimes in our society lately, where everybody's like making personal attacks when there's disagreements. And I've seen Andee disagree full-heartedly, and still at the same time, she values the person. She values the relationship of the person and the feelings of the person that she's interacting with. And I always just think that that's so beautiful. And I love how you model that, even for people who don't really get to see you a lot in person. But being able to kind of be that presence out there, I just always think is so cool. And so thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm excited.
Absolutely. So I'm going to brag on Andee a little bit. So Andee is a wife. She's a mom. You are a full-time mom, man. How many do you have now?
5.
Wow.
Yeah, 5.
5 kiddos. Absolutely. So I know you guys are always busy. Family is super, super important to you guys, which is just really, really cool. And one thing that I'm super excited to hear about on here is that you had a bad counseling experience. I'm not excited that you had a bad counseling experience, but I am excited to hear about this counseling experience because I am so appreciative that you're open to sharing this, because we talk about counseling a lot. We are counselors. And so what we talk about and what we hear typically are success stories, right, of counseling, people who say, oh, counseling has changed my life. And we don't always get to hear those other experiences with counseling. And I think they're so important to spread awareness of. So I would love to hear a little bit about the counseling experience that you had and what that meant for you.
Well, gosh, it's not something I've talked about in a long time. It was probably 2001 or 2002. I think I was 11, 12, somewhere in there. My family, my parents, decided that it was like the time for me to have some counseling, I guess. And it was online. It was mostly through email, and then they would send like these quizzes. I don't know what else to call it, just like a quiz thing they would send you. And I had like a counselor that was just mine. I can't remember her name, but she was kind or whatever. But the topic of that counseling that I went through, I think it was like a 6-week course. But the topic was sexual purity. It was very like Christian religion based. And at the time, I didn't even know what sex was. So going through this course where they were bringing up all these topics, and I was like, that's gross. I was just not that kind of person. I thought it was icky, and I was like, okay, like that's great. Animals do that. That's how I get kittens and like puppies. I don't want anything to do with it. It was different. That was my first real experience with counseling. At one point, they asked like, I don't remember the exact question, but it was like, where do you get most of your sex knowledge from? And I put on their magazine, and it blew up. Like my counselor contacted my parents. Oh my goodness, she's got these adult magazines. She's 11. Where did she get those? It blew up. And I got in all this trouble, and they're searching my room and all this stuff. And I was like, I did the Smithsonian magazine and like National Geographic. That's where I know these things. It was not inappropriate. I wasn't using them inappropriate. They were just like science-based, magazines. And it got so ugly. And I learned so much from that course that I don't think I should have like known. And I mean, part of that's on my parents for not talking to me. Like there was no reason for me to go through that course. Like I didn't need it. But yeah, it was kind of traumatizing, and it wasn't good. I didn't learn anything. I mean, a huge part of that course was very like the typical Christian stance on like anti-gay, and me being like this little girl who didn't really know what I liked. And it was just very odd. It was very odd, and it was hurtful because a lot of things, I don't know. It was hurtful. It was definitely damaging.
Absolutely. So this was telehealth before it was telehealth. This was like mail and these quizzes, and you were only 11, right? 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was kind of a class, but you had your own counselor assigned. And was it through a church?
I'm not exactly. I don't remember. I knew it was online. My parents, they're separated now, but they were, and I think still are, very into Christian counseling. They have taken these courses. They didn't go to school. They don't have a degree or anything, but they have like ministries and do like counseling. So I don't know if it's something that they helped work on back then, and I was like a guinea pig, or if it was through a church. I'm not exactly sure. They were into some weird stuff.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the thing that strikes me first of all is that, it seems like when you said that they didn't talk to you, right? That your parents didn't talk to you about the content of the course or I
Mm-mm.
mean, the question from the quiz of where are you getting most of your sexual knowledge or information,
Mm-hmm.
that feels like a question that a parent could potentially ask. And it sounds like maybe your parents weren't comfortable
Yeah.
asking those questions or didn't know how to bring up those topics, and maybe that's where this course came in to um, try to fill that role, maybe for parents who weren't comfortable. Is that kind of what it was designed to do?
Maybe it was designed for that. With my parents specifically, they were very comfortable talking about that kind of stuff um, with for other people. I was around and to an extent involved in their ministries and stuff. So I was very like aware of the religious side of like the sexually broken people. Not that I really knew all of what that meant, but it was very there. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, interesting. And so, I mean, what you went through doesn't sound like counseling. It sounds like, um, gosh, I'm not sure, but they called it counseling, right? They called it counseling. They said, this is we're sending you to counseling is kind of the language that was
Mhm.
used.
Yeah, I wonder. I haven't tried looking up that site ever since then. But I should try and remember what it was called and just see if it still exists and if it's changed, like just their approach has changed.
I remember, okay, so I grew up Unitarian Universalist. So not everybody always knows what that is, but like you meet in a building that looks like a church, but it's not a church. It is a meeting house. And the idea, the theology is that all theologies are equally valid. And that relationship with any sort of higher power, universe, whatever you want to call existence, basically, is valid. However you do it is basically how.
Okay.
And so, growing up Unitarian, I was always like trying to explain to people what that meant, because the premise of religion, right, is that okay, this is what we believe. And with Unitarians, it's like, well, this is what you believe and this is what I believe, and both are okay. Like that's like the that's
Mhm.
like the main premise of it. And so we celebrated and learned about all religions, and church service was it was more like a college classroom. It was like discussion. It was like, here's a story, what do you think, go. And it was discussion about it, and it was an interesting way. Anyway, so this church that I grew up in, they did a program called AYS, about your sexuality. And it was we started, I must have been in, probably I was 12, so probably like 6th or 7th grade. And I'm so grateful, to be honest, for that. It doesn't sound like what you went through. And so the only reason I'm telling the story is kind of to set kind of what a stark difference what you're sharing in your experience with this program. And so it was very explicit. Say that. They did not shy away from telling us not only mechanics and scientific terms and function, but also the cultural aspects of sex and sexuality, and discussing the relational aspects of sex and sexuality. And that was a program through a Unitarian church. It was very supportive. It was very validating of who we were becoming, as the premise was like, we're going to be sexual beings because we're human. So who are we going to be in that? right? Not what are we going to do or not do, but who are we going to be in that? So when I'm hearing what you went through, it sounds like the complete opposite. There wasn't that validation of like, who are you and who are you going to be? It was like, this is what to do and this is what not to do. This is right. This is right and this is wrong. So was the course kind of telling you, I mean, it sounds like the course that you went through, and I believe that, I mean, a lot of people go through these kinds of programs and courses. They've got camps about sexuality and trying to, change people's sexuality. And these are such detrimental experiences and such detrimental programs especially for developing young people who are developing these understandings of themselves and developing these identities of who am I and is it okay to be who I am, and all of this. And it sounds like the program you went through had a pretty strict standard on sexuality as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I wonder, I've always tried to think of like a word for it, but it was kind of like soft core conversion therapy almost. Like just that very beginning stages of making sure that you are like a pure, that Snow White virgin on your wedding day, and like making sure that anything you're doing can be like changed. I don't know. It's so weird. It's like thinking back on the type of 11-year-old that I was, and just being I was just didn't care about that at all. Yeah, I just was a kid.
And it seems like it was trying to solve a problem that wasn't there. Like it was trying to convince you to stop doing things you weren't doing, or you weren't thinking of doing or trying to do. So it feels like it might have been trying to come from a place of prevention, but in a way of trying to influence what happens in people's lives instead of exploring and educating people so that we can make our own decisions. And gosh, so it sounds like there was a lot of shame that was kind of created by these types of courses or these types of I like what you're saying about it. It does sound like kind of prepping for conversion therapy. It kind of feels like a like an introductory step, like a grooming for conversion therapy. And can you talk about conversion therapy a little bit, and so that if anybody listening is
Yes, I mean, I can. It's something I've had to work through from my childhood. My parents definitely didn't call it conversion therapy, but they, oh gosh, I haven't said this phrase in so long because it's such a, to me, maybe to others, they firmly believe in this and that's for them. But for me, it's just a disgusting phrase. But they were missionaries to the gay community to help them like realize their sin and turn straight. I kind of like you had said in the beginning, like I understand that everyone believes things differently, and that's okay. Like it's important for us to be different because things would get like super boring. Like going out of your way, I mean, we traveled the entire continent from Canada to like Texas in this like mission to straighten people out. And like I've had to like come to terms with that like I was part of that. I was like between 11 and 14. So I was still a child and like very in denial of my own self. But like I've had to come to terms with like I really was part of that. And yeah, I don't know. It's even though like I wasn't the one going to the therapy, I've had to like heal from conversion therapy that wasn't even like for me.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's so powerful. You know, I mean, when we think about conversion therapy and how much trauma and how much hurt and harm it's caused for so many people, but you have a totally different perspective because you were your child and you were in this involved in this mission, and you were involved in this before you were able to formulate who you were and to understand your identity, and if you agreed or not, and if you know how you felt about it. You were part of it, and even in being part of it, not having it directed at you, but even being part of it was detrimental, was harmful to you. So when you would go around with your parents on these conversion trips, was it to target a certain person, to say, okay, we're going to this city because we're going to go meet and do conversion therapy with this specific person, or was it like a group? Paint us a picture. What was it like?
I don't know how like we came into contact with different places. I know that one place, they had reached out to my parents, that it was like I think it was a Christian school maybe, had reached out to our ministry that they were having like issues within their school, I'm assuming with like gay children, and they needed somebody to like come help save them. And I remember we went to several churches like around. We would go to churches and just other meeting places where groups of people would get together, and we would have like a seminar kind of thing for like a week, you know, or a couple weeks, where we would just be there and my parents would be like ministering and like therapizing. I don't know what words to use, but they were like just doing their teaching. I don't know how everyone like came into contact with them. I mean, I was also little.
Absolutely. And so the message that was being spread around you was, this is sinful. It is sinful if you are homosexual, if you are bisexual, that these are, or that if you're transgender, or if you're non-binary, that this is a sinful thing that you are doing, and that God disapproves of you, of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was just like, these people are going to hell. We have to save them. And I guess it's kind of ironic, and I can find it funny now, but I knew then that I wasn't for sure straight. So it was very odd and very like conflicting, like, and just hurtful in my head that like I'm going to like save all these people from like something that I struggled with. If this is my problem, how can I help them? And then, you know, as I got older, thinking, you know, I'm not choosing this. This is just me. So how is it, like, if God made me, how is it so bad that I'm going to go to hell? Like, I'm not choosing to like who I like. It just happens. You know, you look at someone and you get a crush. Like, that was my mindset. Like, how is it bad if it just naturally happens? Like growing hair or like blinking your eyes. I don't understand why we're all going to hell. And I was certain I was going to hell until I was way older, because I had these urges and these feelings that were so evil.
Wow. How did that impact? I mean, hearing these messages all the time, knowing that, well, I'm part of this mission, right, by association, because my family is, and knowing that, well, I'm having these feelings, right? And I'm in association, I'm telling other people that they're wrong and they're sinful and they're going to hell, and I'm experiencing this too. This is who I am as well. I mean, how did that impact your sense of yourself and your relationship with yourself, or your relationship with God?
I think it was pretty I mean, it impacted really hard and not in any kind of good way. You know, I was a terrible person, and like I couldn't tell anybody that I knew because I mean they were all on the on the train of like these people go to hell, and I couldn't tell anybody, especially knowing the extent and the like amount of time that my parents put into like turning these people straight. Like they were going to do that to me.
Absolutely. That feeling of, I'm surrounded by people who I can't tell, I can't talk to about who I am. And I can't, that feeling of having to have a secret from everybody in your
Yeah.
life and everybody that you love, because if they knew, then they were going to do that to you. The same thing that you were witnessing happen to other people.
Yeah, I saw a couple of teens like get sent away, that were just like unturnable. And I saw them get sent away, and I knew that would be me because I had tried to turn, all the way straight. I had tried to do that, and it didn't work. And I was part of the counseling, so obviously I knew what I was doing. And knowing I would be one of those teens sent off, I just hid everything, and it caused a lot of internal just frustration with myself, hate towards part of myself for wanting to be who I am. And, it's not okay to be me.
Absolutely. So not only was there threat of, if somebody finds out this part of who I am, then not only is there threat that I'm going to have these treatments, but I could lose my family. I could be sent away and disconnected from everybody that I love.
Yeah.
I mean, conversion therapy, there's so much research now showing that it does not work, showing that how frequently it's linked with increased suicide rates, how frequently it's related with increased rates of depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from these conversion treatments. And unfortunately, therapy and counseling, they called it counseling. They said this, it's conversion therapy. They called it therapy. And for so many people who have gone through, who either went through conversion therapy or had a family member or a loved one who went through it, there is secondary trauma that happens even as people hear about these conversion therapy groups and camps and institutions, right, where people were sent, and there's secondary trauma that happens, and unfortunately, a lot of times it gets associated with therapy, with mental health therapy, with mental health counseling, and it's so common that this happens because it was called therapy, it was called counseling, and like you said, it was promoted as, I'm helping, I'm going to help you, I'm helping, I'm going to this this Christian school to help these poor students who are having homosexual urges, right? And we go, how are you helping this person, right? But they really believed that they were helping, right? There wasn't the evidence now that we have saying like, no, you are doing a lot of damage. A lot of them didn't know. And I think that must have been that much more confusing as a child growing up in these missions, because these are people you love. These are these are people who are like generally good-hearted, helpful people, saying that they're helping, believing that they're helping, and doing so much damage in the process to people's mental health. It's a sad situation all around. And I think even for the people who were, some of the people who were doing the conversion therapy, and for you're such a great example because you were part of it. You weren't hosting it, but you were part of it. You were in there with it, and then coming to terms with what that did to you, and then what
Mhm.
it did to other people. So have you kept in touch, or have you ever reconnected with any of the people that were subjected to the conversion therapy, that any time like later on or anything? Did you ever talk to them again?
I did stay in contact for a long time with one kid. We got very close, but then was in Canada, and so it wasn't something we could see each other, reasonably. And then he started traveling, and I started having kids, and we just kind of lost contact. And then we were mostly stayed in touch on social media. And when he didn't have Facebook anymore, I haven't really been able to find him. There was another person that was involved that I've looked for a handful of times, and I can't seem to find them at all. But the one person, the first person I talked about, I have looked for him a few times, pretty hard, trying to just find out how to contact him. Mostly because, like, for my healing, I know that I was a child and I shouldn't feel any kind of guilt. But deep down, like, I feel a sense of guilt that I was involved. And he turned into one of my best friends. And last I had talked with him, he was still gay and getting married and just having like a really good life. But that was probably like 10 years ago. And I've looked for him a few times. I just wanted to, like, as I'm coming to terms with things, I just want to be able to tell him that I'm sorry, that I was part of that, and that I don't believe in that, and that I'm just happy that he's happy.
Absolutely. Is there anything you would want to say, to any of the people that were subjected to the conversion therapy? I mean, I love what you have to say and want to say to that person, but do you have a message for people who went through conversion therapy and are maybe now adults and still gay and still like living their lives?
Mm-hmm.
I love that, like, still gay, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have a message for those people that maybe experienced that as well, and they experienced it alongside with you?
I don't know. I guess just if it's coming from like a religious, like a Christian kind of backing, that God made all of us unique and different. And as far as I'm concerned, like, you were made the way you were on purpose. And being gay might upset like family members, but you're not really hurting anybody, like, by being yourself. I mean, as long as there's like consent and all of those things in place, like, you being you, there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, coming to terms with going through that kind of conversion therapy and things, like, go ahead and come to terms with that and understand how hurtful it was and how wrong they were, like, to put you through that. And love yourself, because I mean, we're all so cool. Humans are just so cool. We're all so beautiful, and all of our different mindsets are so cool. And yeah, just come to terms with it and forgive as best you can, those people. Forgive yourself for accepting whatever guilt or, like, just accepting whatever you expected from them. Like, forgive yourself, let it go, and just go be gay. Just go be gay. Be happy.
I love that. I love that. And I love that it's not, it doesn't have to mean that we can't believe what we believe. And even with our religious beliefs, right? It doesn't mean that we can't have a relationship with God or any other higher being. And it doesn't mean that we can't have those beliefs still. And I love that. I love that, even coming from a Christian background belief, I mean, I believe 100% that God made us exactly the way that he made us, and he does not make mistakes. And I believe that with everything I have, that he doesn't make mistakes, because if he does, we're all in trouble, right? If he does, like, I'm in big trouble.
Uh-huh.
And so I have to believe that. I have to believe that, whether it's myself or somebody else, that God has made us exactly the way that we were supposed to be. And it in my head, I kind of have to giggle when I think about conversion. I know it's horrible, but I picture like people going around and saying like, oh, um, God wanted people to all be 6 foot tall. And so we're going to go around and, like, if you know somebody who's not 6 foot tall, like, go around and we're going to like teach them how to walk on stilts so that they can
Mhm.
all right, walk around and be 6 foot tall.
Mhm.
Like, what? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Because
Mhm.
what we're saying at that point is we know better than God. We know better
Mhm.
than the being that designed us. And if it's not God, if it's the universe for you, right? Or if it's just the intelligence, right, out there, or if it's DNA, right, whatever it is that we can believe in, we're basically saying, no, that's not right. We're right. And
Mhm.
when we try to change people in that way. But yeah, all of that processing that you've had to do, thinking through this, and again, like, gosh, you were a child, and so there's not only the, like, well, what I thought as a child, right, like we didn't have the same understanding as we do
Mhm.
now of that, so kind of translating some of those childhood understandings and feelings into how we can see it as an adult. And how beautiful would it be if you can connect with that friend,
Mhm.
and have that conversation, because beautiful for him and beautiful for you, because
Mhm.
how often do we get those opportunities to really heal in that way? And I think that just by you sharing your story, what an interesting
Yeah.
story and what an interesting perspective you bring. And just for anybody who is out there who has been sent these messages, that if you are LGBTQ, that if you have heard messages saying that you are wrong, that you are sinning, that you are that God doesn't love you because of it, hear Andee. Hear Andee's voice. She has been there. She has been there in the conversion therapy. She's been there on the other side of it.
Mhm.
And still believes that you are beautiful, beautiful human, and you are exactly the person that you need to be. And our sexuality does not define us in terms of being good, loving people any more than our
Mhm.
hair color does, or any more
Mhm.
than our waistline does, right? Like,
Mhm.
these are things that people will try to divide us using, and we don't have to go along with it. And Andee, you were on a track with your upbringing and with your family. You were on a track to be that way. You were conditioned and trained from a very young age, to think that way, and
Mhm.
to promote those beliefs. And how did you do it? How did you break away from that? 'Cause that takes a lot of strength and character and courage to break away from that in your beliefs.
Gosh, I don't really know. I think I can't pin it to like one particular point or one particular like time. I just, as I've gotten older, I'm not that old, but these things happened a long time ago, 16 years ago or more. I don't know, just as time has gone on, and I started just thinking for myself and studying for myself, and I don't know, just working on myself. I think a lot of self reflection and thinking about if we think, specifically of God as a father, and I'm a mother, so I can't. I mean, I'm similar. We'll just say parent. If we're thinking of God as like a parent, if one of my kids was gay, I wouldn't send them to hell. I wouldn't want anything bad for them. Like
Mhm.
there's an unconditional love there, and that's what I think that that's the point of like the whole Christian and the whole Bible and the whole of everything is the love that's there. And yeah, just coming to terms with that, that God loves me exactly as I am, hair color, eye color, you know, gender or sexual identity, whatever, that God loves me, and nothing changes that. Um, I know like there are people who do bad things, um, and they make bad choices. That's one thing, but even then, like God still does love them. And if God can love somebody who is like the worst kind of person, like a bad guy, if God can still love them through that, then like why can't He love me for me being me?
That is so beautiful. You've done so much forgiveness work, forgiving others that were around at that time, forgiving yourself for things that you interpreted as being your fault. I mean, it's so beautiful how you've been able over the last 16 years to strip away some of those layers. And I'm not saying it makes it right and it doesn't make it right better. Those things all still happened. But you have done such beautiful work in that, and in doing that have served as inspiration for so many others who went through that process and need to know that they're not alone in that, and that even if they were a child at the time, even that 11-year-old that was with the conversion therapy group, that person accepts you and that person loves you, and it's amazing. So thank you so much, Andee. So if you could give some advice to somebody who might be on the fence about starting maybe like mental health counseling, which is different from conversion therapy, but maybe had an experience in conversion therapy and went, can I trust a counselor, right? Are they going to try to change me? Are they going to do this to me again? What advice might you give to somebody like that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think it's something that I myself have struggled with, like reaching out and wanting to talk to somebody else about these things just for, my own personal like inner conflict. Be mindful of what who you are reaching out to. Go ahead and do your research. I mean, if you want to stay like in a religious kind of counseling, like be mindful and research what these people believe before you reach out and get torn apart. And yeah, I guess just reach out and go slow, maybe.
Good. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so important that, counselors are human beings. Counselors have their own values and their own belief systems, and certain counseling agencies have certain values and belief systems. And so, like you said, doing your homework and making sure that that the place that you're going to or the person that you're talking to, they don't have to share your beliefs. They don't have to share your values, but they need to be respectful of yours, and making sure that that is a core value of them. They have to have the value of being respectful of other people's beliefs and values and who other people are. So I love that. Thank you so much for being here, Andee. It's been what an interesting interview and what a great perspective that you have. And you're like a beacon for people who went through this, So I appreciate you so much, just as a guest, but also as a person. You've impacted my life probably more than you know. So I appreciate you.
I'm Andee Thompson, and I need a counselor.
Awesome. Thank you. So do I. So does Chrissa. We all do. We can all benefit. Mental health counseling, not conversion therapy.
Yes.
No, thank you. Nope. And again, it's not that these were, this was your family. These are loved ones. It's not that they were like evil people trying to do harm. They didn't know. They didn't understand. They were given these beliefs and these ideas, and they didn't understand the damage that they were causing. And you do. and you're taking that and you're using that for good in the world. And I just think it's beautiful. So thank you, Andee, for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, super interesting.
Mm-hmm. So if you are in Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health counseling for your kiddos, give us a call at 800-531-4236, or you can check out our brand new website at www.heartandsolutions.net. That website, brand new, January 1st. Let us know. And if you're calling or if you're listening from another state and you have interest in getting signed up for a counselor, and a counselor who will validate you, who will listen to you, and who will allow you to express and be exactly who you need to be in that session, without judgment, without trying to change you. Let us know. If you're in a different zip code, we can help connect you with a counselor in your zip code as well, even if you're not in Iowa. So let us know how we can help.
Like Julie mentioned at the beginning, we post every Sunday night at 5 p.m. Central. We post on YouTube and on our Facebook page and Spotify and anywhere you listen to podcasts, so we can help you get started with a counselor and get ready to call a counselor on that Monday. And if you have any questions for us or for Andee, you can message You Need a Counselor Podcast on Facebook, or you can send us a DM on Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast as well. Okay, so I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Bye.